Imagine waking up one morning and realizing your AI assistant hasn't just written your emails overnight, it's also moved money between your accounts, paid your bills, maybe even booked your next specialist appointment, all without you lifting a finger. Terrifying? Exciting? Maybe both? Hi, I'm Lucy Lin and this is Emerging Tech Unpacked. In today's episode, we have a special live recording from Stone & Chalk during Sunrise Festival and sponsored by Stripe, where we explored what happens when AI stops being a chatbot on the screen and starts acting as an agent in the real world, discovering services, negotiating options, and actually moving money in the background. We get into how customer discovery is shifting from Google searches to AI assistants, what it means when more traffic to Stripe's documents is now coming from more AI agents than from humans. Also, the messy edge cases where agents hallucinate policies, send messages you didn't mean to send, or get a little too much control over your credit card. Joining me on stage are Daniel Miller, Head of Solutions Architecture at Stripe, and Lloyd Carroll, Head of Payments from Splose. Together, we talk about where AI is genuinely transforming payments and productivity, where it's overhyped, how to design for trust in sensitive industries like healthcare and finance, and where to draw the line between AI autonomy and human control. In this conversation, which was recorded live in front of an audience, you'll hear some laughter, a few tangents, and real-world stories from DNA tests and rock bands to AI agents that slightly overstepped their brief. A huge thank you to our partners, Stripe, Stone & Chalk, and Sunrise, for making this live episode possible. Let's get into it. I hope you enjoy this special live episode about Fintech and Agentic AI. My name is Lucy Lin. I'm the host of the Emerging Tech Unpacked podcast. I sit at the intersection of innovation and careers. This is something I'm very passionate about. I spent my time in financial services. I used to work at American Express. I used to work at AMP. So I do know this space quite well. And then I spent 15 years in corporate. Don't hold that against me. And then the last 10 years I've been in startups, helping a lot of startups grow and scale. I've come from a marketing and communications background because, can I just say, in technology, who's great at communicating their technologies? Who? Anyone? Tech people great at this? Not that much. So I'm helping with that. And that's why I started the podcast, because I feel that we need to get people educated so they're not so scared about all this things that is happening and changing, and how can we get everybody leveled up so we are all coming on the journey together and everybody understands, and not just very complex things and talking jargon, but everybody to understand it. So I'm really glad that you are here tonight, and I really value your time. So we're going to have a great conversation. I'd love to say that we love our partners. So Sunrise, Blackbird is one partner. I also really, really want to thank Stripe tonight. Thank you, Stripe. Thank you, Stripes, for coming tonight and helping support this event, which I think is really important. And we'll have Dan Miller on the panel so we can talk a bit more about what they do and etc. I also really would like to thank our beautiful venue partner. Who has been to Stone & Chalk before? Oh, a number of you. Fantastic. Well, I'd love to bring our gorgeous General Manager of Stone & Chalk, Jackie Duncan, and she's going to give us a couple of words.
Yeah, thanks so much. Gorgeous. Thanks, Lucy. So flattering. What is gorgeous is our innovation hub here. The venue around of applause. And Lucy Lin, our gorgeous podcast host. Good evening, everyone, and thanks so much for being here. My name is Jackie Duncan. I'm the General Manager for Stone & Chalk here in New South Wales. We are Australia's largest innovation community for emerging tech builders, bringing together startups, scale-ups, corporates, investors, and governments to help founders go further faster and turn big ideas into real-world impact. It's especially exciting to be here with you, Lucy, and Emerging Tech Unpacked. What I love about this conversation is that it really feels like a full circle moment for Stone & Chalk. Our roots are in Fintech, And it's one of the earliest rates of transformation that we saw here in Australia. And so today we're talking about the next wave, and that's very much AI. It's AI everything. So in many ways, it's a continuation of the same story, how technology reshapes industries, creates new opportunities, and challenges us to think about what's possible. As we say here at SSE, some things are written in stone and the rest is written in chalk. And so thanks again for being here. I'm really looking forward to the conversation. And I think if you think you'd benefit from being part of our community, we'd love to make a connection with you. Thank you so much.
Yay. Let's give Jackie another wonderful big applause for hosting us at this beautiful venue. Thank you so much. We're at the meat of what we're here to discuss tonight. And I'd love to bring my two esteemed panel speakers. I'd love to bring up Daniel Miller from Stripe. He's a head of solutions architect. Dan, if you'd like to come on stage. They'd be sitting in the middle. Oh, and then we also have Lloyd Carroll from Splose, and he's the head of payment. Hi, Lloyd. Hi. Well, let's have a bit of a fun conversation tonight. And I'd love to start off with, we're going to ask about your fun facts, because I do want to hear that from you. But maybe before we do that, just tell us a little bit more about, your companies, a little bit about what you do, and then give us your fun fact.
All right. So I'm Daniel Miller. I lead the solutions architecture team at Stripe for ANZ. I've been at Stripe almost 10 years. I'm not from Australia originally, but moved out here with Stripe. And we've seen the Australian online economy also grow significantly in that time frame. Fun fact, is that where we're headed?
Yeah, please.
Oh, I have the funnest fact. Many years ago, I did one of those DNA tests and I found my funnest fact. 23andMe, I'm not sure if it ever came to Australia, but founded by the founder, Sergey Brin of Google. His wife ran that company. And I did it, you do the little cheek swab, you spit in the vial. You get your results back, and it said, you are in the 99th percentile for Neanderthal traits.
What?
Okay?
You're a caveman.
I'm reading. Yeah. Like, what does this mean? Oh, you have a reduced likelihood to sneeze after eating chocolate.
They tell you that? Wow.
And then the best part, reduced back hair. So here's my fun fact.
So there you go. So you don't need to go to get that hair out of your back because you're pretty clean there, or? Yeah. I'm going to be thinking about that now, Dan. Lloyd.
Yeah, thanks. So I'm Lloyd. I head up payments at Splose. I've been working in payments in Fintech for quite a while now as well. Splose is a SaaS platform for allied health practitioners and practices. We're in 3 countries now, so founded in Australia by Nick out of Adelaide I think around 5 years ago now. And we've been growing kind of 100 percentiles every year since then, and we're in New Zealand and the UK. And so, I recently joined the team there to help scale up their payments platform and adoption of that, and really just help more allied health practitioners get paid. Would you like me to talk about my
Yes,
fun
please.
Okay.
We're here hanging out for it.
I think this is what we've been waiting for since, since we saw the brief. So, mine, I won't go into my back hair routine, but So I was in a band for a long time. So after school, I went to uni for a little bit and then paused that for a while and got to tour the world with my friends in a band. I won't tell you what the band was. Maybe after a few drinks I will. But feels super lucky to have had that experience and then be able to come back and have a career after that. John? Guitar.
Wow.
Yeah. Started playing guitar since I was 5 and it was my dream.
Oh my God. So I'm next to a caveman, really, and a rock star.
Or another kind of caveman.
This is amazing. And what is Agentic AI? I'd love to kind of start with that. So maybe we'll do a bit of an explanation, and then I'd love to get Lloyd to help us with that explanation.
Yeah. So look, I think a lot of folks will have had experience with some sort of LLM or AI. They've created an image or chatted with it. And really the way that I think about Agentic AI is to think about that chat interface, but then a bunch of computers behind it that you can then go off and send off to do your tasks for you. And so those tasks might have context or they might not have context, but through a simple chat interface and connecting a few systems and maybe providing some boundaries and some, we were talking about this before, we might go into a little bit more detail on some of the definitions of things like a harness or, whatever that might be, some guardrails on what that agent can and cannot do. You're able to automate a bunch of things. That's kind of the way that I think about it. Chat interface and a bunch of computers in the background that can go and do your things for you.
Yeah, so it's more like more proactive now and less reactive in terms of, you're typing something to the chat GPT and you're asking questions, but now you can actually do outcomes.
Yeah, definitely.
Dan?
I think many of you probably have only experienced like the call and response chat GPT, right? But all of us have really only experienced like the always on agentic experience that I think we're all heading to, right? Like you kind of see it with Claude Cowork, where you can kind of like spin it up and it's going to control your computer for you. That's getting closer to, I think, what agentic really actually means. It's like something's going to often do something for you with limited or a comprehensive set of instructions, and maybe even be always on some sort of heartbeat behind the scenes and prompting you for certain things when it comes across new information, right? That's agentic. I think if you're just in ChatGPT today, that's truly not getting to like the power of what's possible.
And can you tell us a little bit more about that? Like, what's the power of what's not possible? What do you think is going to be possible as the next step after that?
I think truly, like, yes, people are dabbling with OpenClaw and NanoClaw and all the claws and all that jazz. But I think everyone's going to have one of those, at least one, and it's going to help you do your whole life, right? We're going to be there, I think, knock on wood. I'm not going to say a time frame. But
Really? So it's going to look after all our admin and everything. So we're not going to need to do any admin anymore. Is that right, Lloyd?
Maybe. Yeah. I mean, hopefully not, because I think that's the most obvious use case right now, is a lot of those tasks that require us to go and look at something, copy paste something, put it somewhere else, maybe interpret it a little bit, and then you rinse and repeat that can all be automated, right? So I think that's definitely where we're heading. And I mean, to extend on what Dallin's saying, it's like I use a bunch of these different tools. My meeting notes are all in Granola, right? And that's all my calls, right? And that thing knows everything about me. It knows how I talk. It knows the language that I use. That is basically my sidekick for taking actions after meetings. And so it's like that thing already has that context. I plug that into Claude and I can have Claude take some actions after every meeting for me, right? And so it's like we're kind of getting to that sidekick level pretty quickly. And then if you layer that on with some personal stuff.
Yeah, fantastic. A personal sidekick, everybody. That's what agentic AI is. Is there anything that's like misunderstood when it comes to having a personal sidekick? Like Granola and all your sidekick knows so much about you. Is there some danger in that maybe as well?
can we go like a complete tangent? What's completely misunderstood right now is how any business can just put .ai at the end of their domain and raise a ton of money, right? Shoe companies right now, right? That's the most misunderstood thing right now, I think.
And like, what justifies them like to do that? Like, can anyone be an any old company and then they put AI and then they're raising money and they get the money?
Yeah, it's happening. That's why we're all here.
We're here to put AIs on the back of our companies and then we'll raise more money. Another misunderstood thing. Do you have something else that you think is also misunderstood?
Maybe not misunderstood, but you can't just throw AI at any problem and expect amazing results, right? It's just another tool. And it still only does some things so well, right? I think the phrase I heard recently was things that are highly automatable, but also things that are easily verifiable, right? That's why it does so well at code. You just run the tests and they pass or don't pass. Or we can write more tests to test the things that it's written, right? And we kind of know. Whereas recently I put both Claude and ChatGPT to the test of doing my taxes. And as a joint, tax resident in two countries, quite, not an easy thing to do. They both failed spectacularly. My tax advisor said something completely different, right? So that's an example of like a low verifiable thing. It's really hard to test without having that experience and background knowledge, right? So I think that is probably the most misunderstood thing, in that it's really hard to tell where that line is and what the space is in terms of what is verifiable and not verifiable.
So the tax accountant still has a job. Definitely.
Yeah, and I think it's context dependent and where your expertise is, right? And so it's like, for me, I definitely have Claude go and do a bunch of work for me. And that could be pulling together a report. I think it's the most obvious, really easily translatable version, right? I know where a bunch of data is. I point Claude at it. It goes and gets it, pulls it together and turns it into something that I can share, right? Perfect. That saves me a bunch of time, particularly if I can seed it with information on what it should look for. However, the actual communication of that information requires context. And so like, even though nothing might be wrong in this example, it's like, I know my audience better than what one of these tools does. And so I need to be able to actually tweak that and make sure that it's going to land for my CFO who knows nothing about payments, right? So it's like, this number's up, that number's down. They're really important from, you know, our business or from another business perspective. However, making sure that that message lands, that still might require a little bit of additional context. That said, I think, you know, if you want to talk about the unknowns or what people don't know, it really is super easy to get started. And you kind of just have to tweak a few different problem spaces, work out what's going to fit best for your needs and keep going.
Yeah. And you put in a interesting point. It's all about context. But what if you have bad data that's in there? So if you're giving it bad data or wrong things, then is that then going to also give you bad advice as well?
Yeah, for sure. I think, and to maybe go back to what Dallin was saying as well, like you said, it's just another tool. And that's exactly right. Like, it's bad data in, and then you're going to get bad outcomes or a bad kind of response, or is it verifiably good or bad? Like, you have to have the context on that. However, like, some of these tools are getting to the point now where they might actually challenge you on like, hey, this doesn't look right. Do you know what I mean? So there's levels to that, I think, but the fundamental answer would be yes. If you prompt it poorly, or if you give it bad source information, it's not going to come back with something useful.
Yeah, no, great. I want to talk about the customer experience, because I was talking to you, Dan, about this, and there's been a lot of things that are changing very quickly in terms of the customer experience. And obviously, I think what we're talking about is how fast things are for our own productivity. Potentially that's better. But what else can AI do besides productivity that is great for customer experience, you think?
I think like customer experience from like a customer support standpoint, I think we should not act like that as a summit that every company has achieved. They have not, right? And I think personally, we use Navan at Stripe to do our traveling and booking and stuff. Amazing product. And you can see how they have like really tightened down like how LLMs are used. You have a query, if it's like within a certain budget or price range, like they just solve it for you and you don't talk to anybody. It's clear, like that's the nirvana everyone's trying to achieve. And then you see other experiences where maybe like the chat thing pops up and, you know, it's not exactly the personable experience that we want to have, right? So it's like really kind of navigating what's the right thing for your product or service. Maybe on a different note as well, it's either this week or last week that from like a customer discovery standpoint and a discovery of like Stripe products and services, we have a chart. And on this chart, there's one line going up like this and another line going down like this. And the line going up is the amount of LLMs consuming our docs. And the line going down is the amount of humans, well, supposedly humans with their user agent string, consuming our docs. So at this moment, like there are more agents looking at the docs and reading how to use Stripe than there are humans, right? And so that's a really kind of weird thing to think about when it comes to
how do you track that? How do you track that agents are looking at your documentations rather than humans?
You can look at the analytics and say, you know, what's the browser, right? Is it Chrome? Is it Claude, or is it ChatGPT? So you can do that. And then we hear from our own users at Stripe. They know that agents are kind of like looking at their services. I was chatting with a insurance company that knew that they were hitting pretty significant levels of traffic looking at their insurance policies, but they really just didn't know what to do next, right? So from a customer service standpoint, like it's probably pretty difficult to determine, well, we know we have all this traffic, but like, how do we respond in a way that's right for LLMs and right for humans? Is it the same way? Yeah, it's challenging.
Wow.
I don't think anyone's figured it out yet.
Yeah. What about you, Lloyd? What do you think about customer experience and AI?
Well, I mean, for us, it's really about how we can make sure that our customers and their clients are in control.
And you're in a healthcare business, is
That's
that
right.
right?
Yeah. So Splose is providing a really great experience for your physio, right? So you go and see your physio or a speech pathologist, and afterwards they can notate their notes in Splose and we'll automate that for them. They can actually have that up during the session on their laptop, which a lot of physios, I'm sure we've all been to, will have a laptop with them. And they can notate the whole session and store that automatically, right? And so what we do is we need to make sure that our customers have the right language and the right kind of examples with which they can explain that to their clients, and then also give them the option to opt out, right? Like our customers can opt out, they don't have to use that, and their clients don't have to use it as well. And so it's really kind of about transparency that is then going to build up trust, and then also just making it easy. I think that there is still this kind of cusp where businesses are trying to work out how to make AI make sense for their software or for their customers. And I think we can all imagine a bunch of different examples where it would be perfect, but actually having the experience be native and feel like it should when we're using OpenAI or we're using Claude, that is really kind of really key. And so I'd sort of layer that up. It's, yeah, you have to make sure that you get the customer experience, the user experience right. And then you have to make sure that people have an opt-in, have an opt-out, and, you know, have the language around the products that they're using.
It's interesting you talk about, I think, to my next point, because I was talking to you, Dan, like, you know, everyone's using lots of ChatGPT, Gemini, Perplexity, Claude. And I think the next step is going to be putting in maybe shopping products in there. So then people will know exactly, you know, things that you've decided to search on. Maybe I was looking at shoes or something. And then now you're saying that Stripe is enabling that. So can you talk to me a little bit more about maybe search and, you know, how that is now driving AI from a customer's perspective?
Yeah. And maybe at the end of Lloyd's point is by default, potentially all you're doing is adding Clippy to your service or product, right? Do we want to resurrect Clippy? I'm not so sure, right?
I like Clippy.
That might be not age appropriate for everyone.
Yeah,
Yeah,
sorry.
that's true.
Yeah. But yes, so I think the next one big gambit here is, do people want to shop in that experience? And it seems like yes, but not in every instance, right? And the question I think will really become whether or not people trust the kind of ads and things that are surfaced to them in the various harnesses, and whether or not they're just looking for either kind of like product recommendations or they're actually looking to kind of complete that purchase right there. So Stripe is obviously working with a lot of different companies to go do this. I think there's a lot of potential ways for this to kind of like go. No one really knows, but I think it's quite exciting to see this kind of mature, because what kind of feels indubitably true is that when you are researching and exploring products, the kind of experiences and suggestions you're getting, you trust quite a lot, right? It feels like the LLM is giving you pretty wonderful suggestions when you're searching for that particular thing. And given all the context it knows that about you, it makes a lot of sense, right? So I think a lot here remains to be written, but I think we'll see more and more of this as time goes on.
Do you think everybody's like friends with their LLMs? Everyone's friends with their chatbots?
I say please.
Do you? Do you say thank you as well?
Yeah, I'm super polite, and I kind of am pretty frank with it at times as well. But I'm never rude. There is people. I mean, you know, we've got one of the designers on our team is like quite abrupt. But, you know, having grown up with Terminator and loving all those movies, I can't bring myself to do it, right? So, yeah, I think I also think like we're building up like how we're working with these tools as individuals and as businesses. And like, I don't really see the point in kind of diverging away from how we would talk to a colleague when we're interfacing.
Do you see it as a colleague then?
I mean, I do. I actually have like a few different kind of modes in how I sort of work with these tools. And yeah, and one of them in particular, it's a strategic partner to me, and it helps me think about things. It challenges my thinking, and it's excellent, really, because I can't get the time that I need with peers in industry or with colleagues to actually do that. And so if there's a way for me to short circuit that, why wouldn't I take advantage of that?
Yeah, it's definitely become an advisor for me in terms of giving me a lot of advice. And you've got a personal board, basically, of like, if I have any tricky questions, I'm asking this personal board of AIs to help me answer it.
Yeah, and like I just kind of want to extend on that, because like they can be quite sycophantic, and so you don't want to like get sucked into like thinking you've invented a new kind of type of math or something, right? And might be like, yeah, I'm going to quit my job, like I've got like this amazing idea. So it's like, it's not that. You still have to bring your critical thinking, and you still have to bring your expertise, right? Like you have expertise in whatever, and you need to be able to layer that into it. And so it's about like interrogating the tool as much as you are kind of using it to bounce ideas.
Love it. Dan, what do you think about trust as well? Do you think trust is critical? Can we build AI into our entire behavior change and trust it?
I think first and foremost, we should attempt to hold the frontier AI labs accountable. Safety really does matter. And I don't know which one is winning right now, right? But it feels like that is a really big part of all of this, right? Because if these models are being used for, nefarious purposes, like what's the point? We're not going to net positive here if that's the case. And to a degree, we're already seeing some of that when it comes to like fraud and stuff like that. But when it comes to building AI into our own products and services, what remains constantly true is that trust arrives on foot and leaves on horseback, right? And if you betray your own users' trust, or even like your colleagues' trust, or you're using it and being told that like it's going to work for this particular purpose and it completely fails you, you're not going to trust it, right? And the whole thing's going to collapse. So I think that has to be a critical component in terms of like product design from beginning to end.
Yeah, love it.
Yeah, and like I think there's this really kind of interesting thing that's happening now with agentic AI, where it's like we absolutely have to hold some of these labs accountable for trust, and even from where they're sourcing their information and what have you. However, with agentic agents, let's just call them agents, there's actually like a personal accountability thing there as well, right? Like one of my agents sent a Slack message for me today, right? And I didn't want it to do that, but I did give it access, carte blanche, to send Slack messages in a certain channel, right? So I'm not blaming Claude for that, right? That's on me.
Do they send the good thing or a bad message?
No, well, it was fine, right? But it wasn't ready to send. It wasn't ready to send, and then I can't edit it because of how the integration works, right? We're in the weeds now, but like it's like that kind of thing. There's like a really interesting give and take there, where it's like as users of these products and as businesses, we need to be able to kind of find that line, and then I also think that we need to be able to make sure that's really easy to use for customers. So, as we maybe bring up an agent or something like that, or, an MCP server, it's like, can we make that really easy to understand for the every person and not just, nerds like us?
Yeah, and explain MCP for the non-nerds.
So an MCP server is a way for agents to interface with one another. It's just like, a universal adapter. And, there might be a US adapter for payments, and there might be an Australian adapter for documents or something like that. But it's kind of just a power adapter to get them plugged in.
Yeah. And you work in financial services and healthcare. How do you get people to trust? Like, because they're very sensitive topics and industries, how do you get the staff to trust? How do you get your patients to trust? How do you get your customers to trust?
Yeah, I mean, look, it's really about just being front and center with how we're using their data. And at Splose, what we do is we take a kind of data minimization approach, which is like, how much information do we need to deliver value? So if that means that we kind of don't store a bunch of PII, we don't send that to the agent because we don't need to curate a great note for a physiotherapist or a speech pathologist, then we don't do that, right? And so, we can prove that, and we can show our customers that. And it's just like, I think being on the front foot from that perspective is how I would think about that. Yeah.
Yeah. Dan, payments is a very unsexy topic, but
Excuse me.
until it becomes a growth lever, Where do payments friction show up for you, and what changed once you've reduced it?
It shows up all the time. I think if I might get on my pedestal, even in Australia, which has one of the biggest saturation, it's the most saturated market when it comes to Apple Pay and Google Pay. The total number of businesses offering Apple Pay or Google Pay on their site is still shockingly small compared to all the kind of like online commerce that happens. So I think just from like a friction standpoint, like we're like not even talking about AI right now, but that is like the single thing that I probably say the most, and I have said the most in my time on Stripe. It's just like, just do this and you'll see your conversion like have a nice little boost for you. Of course, there's lots of like specifics and things like this, but I think that is probably a great example of where friction comes into play and it's so easy to fix.
Yeah, I don't think payments is not sexy, but
Love it.
other people might. But
Tell us why.
Yeah, look, I fell in love with payments and with B2B in particular a number of years ago when I was working at a company called Domain. And so in Australia, there's two real estate platforms. One of them is called Domain, and I worked on the B2B side, and being able to actually talk with a business and help solve a real business problem is like just such a great way to build products, right? I love the consumer stuff, and it's amazing the kind of consumer experiences you can build. But as that kind of expectation comes towards B2B, it really is just a great way to kind of work out how to solve problems. And so as we build payments into that, it's really the same theme. Every small business has issues with cash flow, and every small business wants to get paid faster. And if you can help them do that, it really is just an absolute game changer for their business, which makes it a game changer for your business, right? And so, to take the Splose example, it's like Splose was built on top of Stripe's billing and payments sort of service for all of the subscription fees. And when it came time to actually build on top of that and start offering payments to our customers, it was a no-brainer to start to do that, right? And so, we've got nearly 100% of their invoicing on our platform. That's like 1.6 billion in the last 12 months of dollar value. And so if we can help them speed up their time to payment on that, which we do when they get paid through our online payments, like 5 times faster than if they get paid through direct transfer or something else, we're not really doing anything, right? We're just putting a link in an email and letting a client, their client click on it. And, having Apple Pay and Google Pay for sure helps, because as we all know, we're much more likely to click that button. But it just makes such a big difference for these small businesses to get paid faster so that they can pay their bills faster, so they can hire more people, so they can buy equipment if they need to. And so, yeah, if you can solve those pain points, everybody wins.
Yeah. And as a consumer, I love it when I can buy things easily and online. I remember the days when you first go on the internet and you're like, oh, there's like 10 steps. You got to get the credit card out, put in all the digits and everything. But now it's so much easier. It's like one click and then you're able to pay. And I agree, from a business perspective, if you can also like allow payments a lot faster and then they get money faster, as you say, cash flow is king, then everybody wins on both sides. The consumer win, but also the business itself, they win too. And we all know that payments is essential for society. I mean, we started off as cavemen and women. That's you. Still here. And then, we were bartering for goods. And then there's paper IOUs. And then there's physical currencies. Who's got money in their wallet right now? Who's carrying cash? Anyone? One person. 2, 3.
A few successful 2-up winners.
Not very many, right? I think we're all going digital, and I just think this is the way it is. It's on our phones. Mainly, I think it's on your phones. And how do we make it more efficient so it's easier to converse between us and the business?
Maybe ask the crowd, how many of you given an agent your money?
Who can trust their agent to pay?
One hand. A brave man, brave soul.
One person.
But I think this will be more common, right? Like, when we're already hearing about issuing cards that are, limited in scope, limited in value, or you're specifying, nope, it can only be used at this merchant or business. Go off, and do something for me, right? I think that's another thing that'll become way more commonplace. And it's interesting to see some of the neobanks play to this. And I don't know, how did you give it your money?
How did I?
Yeah.
Should we give an microphone? Hang on, wait, hang on. What? Yep.
My Claude bot's got access to my credit cards and OpenClaw as well. Yeah. But I've got it controlled in the controlled environment. So it has access to limited services and I can control that, right? So it's not everything and anything. Yeah. And it basically can check on the computer, check on my app for new CVVs. So I think that's really critical as well. So some banks produce new CVVs, done new CVVs every single time, every single day for 24 hours. So that really helps as well. So it's not basically abusing the credit cards, right? So that definitely is a control that a butterfly.
Yeah, I think you're very brave. But I think it'll get a lot easier for this to happen in a much more even controlled way, right? It has to. Or else like the agents that we want to go like run part of our lives are just not going to be able to do all the important bits like actual paying for things. Or I think the other possibility, right, is that we'll always kind of come to the point where there has to be a human in the loop for payments portion of like whatever experience they're doing, right? And maybe that is the sensible way to go about it, where, hey, your agent is almost there. You get the push notification. You say, yep, I did go tell it to order me groceries. And then you hit okay, right? Which wouldn't be such a bad outcome anyway.
Yeah, I was like, so what I would love is if I could, and maybe Stripe could build this actually, if I can just give you guys my my card, which you probably already have with Link or something, and then I can then have an agent experience that goes and looks for something that I definitely want. Because I think we talked a little bit before about search. I, at this point, don't trust any of the agents to search for me. I like they can do research, but surfacing results for the small items that I want to buy, it's just not as good as Google, right? And that's a hard bar. Like I might go Google something. I know I want to buy this new desk chair, right? The agent, I'm happy if it goes away. I've got a desk chair. I'm not in a rush and it can go away and find the cheapest one and come back and tell me. Mm-hmm. The other thing is it can wait for it to go on sale. And so I might be like, yeah, okay, I'm happy for you to wait for 30 days. When it drops below this price, you can make the purchase. So like there is like, I think there's like a kind of something in between that would be great to see. However, buying travel, I don't know, maybe I do want to actually click go to make sure that it hasn't just decided that 5 legs is better than 1, you know, because like, right, like we're just, there's things there that I think intrinsically as humans, we want to control. And yeah, there's a bunch of reasons for that.
Yeah, I'd like to explain.
One more anecdote. I had that moment with my wife where I said, no, trust me. We can let the LLM buy our groceries, okay?
You said that to your wife.
Yeah. She's like, okay, here's the recipes I want. And I was like, yep, give it to Claude. Co-work, get to work. And co-work went and like picked all the stuff. And like the groceries get delivered, and I live in Melbourne, so we did series. I don't know if anyone knows what series is. Anyway, everything comes, and I walk into the kitchen, and there's a pile of stuff on our island. And she goes, this is the stuff that is not in any of the recipes. I was like,
That's a bit of a fail then.
Yeah, I was like, okay, the skill needs some work. We can fix that.
So I guess humans still need to be in the loop. Can you explain a little bit more about that concept? And then what are you, clearly groceries, you're not going to automate that just yet. But can you explain a little bit more about what other controls would you going to still hold on to?
Yeah, like in that case, no. I'm definitely going to try to order my groceries again by a Claude. I just didn't give it all the instructions, right? I didn't say, like double check or go to the links and only look at the recipe links, like ignore everything else or something like this, right? Like there's some magic incantation that I missed.
So is it your fault then, Dan?
It's my fault. Yeah. And there's a nice parallel. I have young children, and it's not unlike that, right? Where like they go off and you say, go do something, and you like clearly forgot to say, put on pants, right? And they go and do something half naked, right? And so, yeah, like definitely going to continue doing that. But I think even in that scenario, when it came to finally checkout, I said, stop. I get to press pay, right? because I just want to check. And obviously I didn't check the list of stuff being bought. I just wanted to make sure it didn't add like $1,000 to the cart and then said, hey, I'm good to go. And the same goes, like Lloyd was saying, a lot of things at work where the research is done. Our jobs sound very similar, by the way. The research is done, but like the context of who it's going to is really important. Or I want to just like finesse a few extra things before it finally gets shipped. And you find lots of stuff that you, even after like 9 months from this Cambrian explosion of actually useful LLMs, you're still finding the hallucinations in there. You're still finding weird things in the output that you're like, oh, you don't actually mean that. You know, there's a few more tweaks here. So I think the answer, to come back to you, Lucy, is everything. It's just like what that line is in the sand. And it's going to be very different for every sort of process or thing.
What about you, Lloyd? Are you, you know, you talked about a little bit previously about fraud and hallucinations and errors. What else do we need to look out for? What are the other risks that we need to be aware of to, you know, maybe around designing all these things as we're moving forward?
Yeah, look, I think all those areas are really important, right? And like fraud is a really interesting one. I know that there's been a big prevalence of fake IDs being generated, right? And so if you work in payments, you'll know what that means. But for various reasons, if somebody can create a fake ID that looks real enough, a lot of the fraud systems won't catch it. And so it's like, hey, if you're building a tool that allows people to generate images, I don't know, do you want them to do that, right? It's kind of cool. It's a really great use case. If you can make a real looking ID or a fake passport or something, but I don't know, should you be able to do that? So I think it's like, there's a lot of different areas that we need to be careful. And look, I think everybody's heard about the hallucinations and things like that. But if you kind of flip it around, it's like, what can we do differently as users? And I think it comes back to some of those skills that we all have. It's like, hey, I'm interested in finding out how this thing works and whether the response is legit or not, and interrogating that. And so it's like, if you can do that, if you can see the sources, you know, I remember not that long ago, it feels like it could be 6 to 12 months less, right, ago, where a response would come back and have no sources. Now it's just like everything comes back with a source. Those little things, we're going to see more and more of that are going to allow us to trust.
So it's transparency of where you're getting information from.
Yeah, it's transparency. And then being able to actually reference check that as well.
Yeah. I mean, do you see a lot of fraud at Stripe? You must do. Tell us about it.
Yes. No end to it. If you're on the internet and you're doing anything, you're under attack by default, right? That's just the truth, right? I don't know if any of you remember installing like Windows XP, and if you didn't put the firewall up within 60 seconds of it being a fresh install, you were done, right? That's still true for payments. People are out here attempting they're looking for the weakest link, and now they have LLMs to help them kind of automate the process of finding these websites or these commerce tools or what have you, and then go try and exploit weak points. So trying to find cheap products that they buy easily and then issue a bunch of refunds or some sort of timing attack, you know, it's endless. And I think it's only gotten more intense with the advent of LLMs.
Yeah. How do you solve this problem? Like, it's such a huge problem. I get scam emails, calls every day, constantly. Is there a way of someone not trying to steal my own money? Like, you know, how do you solve that? Can it be solved? Unfortunately,
the answer is no. And I feel that I can say that because we've all been around long enough to know that bad guys whose job it is to get ahead of what the good guys have in place are always going to be there. And like that, I don't say that to throw shade, by the way, right? Like, we partner with Stripe for all of our kind of financial infrastructure, and it's like we are protected in a bunch of areas. And so one, I think, more recent example is, you know, card caching. And without getting too nerdy about things, that basically means that somebody has a bunch of card details they've stolen, a bunch of CCVs that they found from your OpenCore, your GitHub that OpenCore left open for you. And then they've gone ahead and then replayed that, right? And they find the ones that work, and then they go ahead and create invoices. So if they do that somewhere else on another platform, and what they can then do is use an agent to go ahead and create a bunch of invoices and then pay them with the cards they do no work. And I made that sound kind of pretty simple. It really is a lot easier than it used to be. Because before, 6 months ago, you would have had to actually go in and create a bunch of invoices and then get the card details. You could probably have some semi-automated way to pay them. But now that you can have an agent control your browser, any software platform is susceptible to having invoices created through it that can then be used to steal money from people, right? And so I think that we are going to just see more and more of that. And that's why fraud companies and what have you exist, right? So that, they can help solve that problem, and, we can pay them to do that. But yeah, I don't have a sexy answer to that, right? I mean, I do think that it is going to get easier to pick this stuff up. These guys know that agents are looking at their documents. You can kind of tell that an agent's taking an action on your platform. And so it's like, oh, okay, do we just not allow that? Or do we only allow it to do certain things and what have you? So there's levels to it.
I think one area as well we haven't quite reached as a group of people who go out on the internet. By default right now, the internet does not know who you are until you log into Facebook or whatever, right? But maybe there's a future you have to authenticate to go on the internet, and you authenticate yourself as a human. And that's either with your government or your ISP or some combination of all of the above, which sounds a bit dystopian, I think, in a way. I don't want to do that. But actually, maybe that's the only way that we get to a place where now we're in a sphere where everyone's acting as a human and you're not just out here talking to agents or other things. Yeah, at that base level, that would be one way to maybe stop it. But even there's plenty of flaws.
Yeah, it's that tricky line I think we were talking about before, the trust of the agent, trust of the human. But then if you're going to be a bad actor, then there's lots of bad actor humans too. And then they're programming the bad actor AIs, and therefore, how that back to that question of trust, which is the theme of tonight. I want to talk about scaling because, over here, everyone's looking at how we can grow. Splose, I don't know if everyone knows, just raised $46 million. Congratulations. Yep. I think that gets a clap. Amazing.
Yeah.
Largest Series A for a South Australian funded technology company in history. So, Lloyd, what did Splose have to do to prove that, it's worth investing? It's a hard market right now. Can you tell us your secrets?
Yeah. Grow and then prove that you can keep growing. That's really that's the secret sauce. I mentioned earlier, Splose has been growing quite a bit in a very competitive market, right? So you've got Heidi Health coming out with AI stuff. You've got Halaxy, who they do a bunch of automated billing, and you've got a bunch of different platforms out there, right? Clinico, it's obviously a big one, and then there's niche ones in every market. So I mentioned, the UK, they're going to have different platforms as well, and so it's really, how can you prove to investors that you are growing? And how can you prove that you can keep growing? And that includes really kind of just laying it all on the table and being transparent about what's working well and being transparent about where there's room to improve. And so we were talking earlier about some of the different things that you should think about as you scale. And it's been really interesting kind of joining Splose at this stage where the team's tripled in the last kind of 12 months. And there's a few really obvious things that the team has done well, right? They have built a platform that works. It does everything that customers need to do, right? And they've partnered with a few different kind of businesses, Stripe, or, it's built on top of Xero and QuickBooks to help all of our customers do their accounting stuff, which they don't want to know about, right? So if you make those decisions early, it really helps set a platform up for scaling internationally. And then, when you look at how to get into the UK, it's hey, do you have the right people on the ground? Do you have experts in this market who can talk to customers, but also can help you work out how to get your marketing right, for example, right? Because the UK is a totally different landscape to Australia and different things resonate. So yeah, there's a lot of things that you need to be able to do to kind of prove that you can scale. And when you're talking with investors, it really is, about finding the right partners who are going to help you grow and continue to grow, and being transparent with them.
Yeah, Dan?
Can I ask a follow-up question? How much of it do you think is, numbers, metrics, growth, revenue? On the other side of that, skills, people, knowledge, drive. What's your kind of view on that?
In my experience, it depends on the investor and it depends on the stage of the business. And so like Spectrum, who was the lead for this round, they are definitely a people and data partner. And Athletic Ventures, who kind of came in on the round as well, they're definitely, people and as well. So it matters materially depending on who the investor is. But I also think it's like the stage of the company, right? Like we are a startup turning into a scale up. It's a growth company, and that relies on getting the right people. It relies on having the right relationships within the investment community and within the market as well. So yeah, it's both. And
I love how you talk about skills, because one thing that I think is really important is to think about the skills we need, especially as this is changing so quickly. Like AI has really affected all our workforces and workplaces. So can you tell us a few skills that you think is really important in this age right now that all of us in the room can really take away with?
That is a super, super interesting one. Like I was thinking about something along these lines recently, and I'm like, is there a different skill that we need when we're working with agents or working with an LLM, or is it actually just reusing the stuff that we already, have, maybe in a different way? And so I think like if you had to pick, 3 skills, it's probably, can you adapt to how these things can be used? Can you adapt to how they're used in our workplace? Can you stay on top of what is changing, right? So are you going to be curious enough to kind of stay on top of that and work out how to use them? And then can you actually talk about them, right? Like communication is more important than ever. And it's not just like communicating with your little sidekick or whatever. It's like, can you actually, if you're building an agentic workflow, right? Can you actually articulate to a colleague or to a customer how that works? Can you actually articulate that and talk about it? So yeah, I think for me, it would just be, adaptability, curiosity, and communication, which sounds like a weak answer, but to be honest, there's not like 1 or 2 specific skills that I think didn't exist before. I don't know what you think.
Yeah, I think they're the human skills that's really important. I mean, we talked about your groceries because maybe you didn't give it enough context and communication.
I definitely did, yeah.
Then it didn't give you what you needed. What do you think, Daniel, in terms of skills you need?
Yeah, I almost have no notes on Lloyd's thoughts there. I think maybe just one more, maybe more emotional thing I'd add would be like, I'm finding actually there's a lot of things that I maybe hold sacred, or I like can't think to do it any other way. And then I'm challenging myself to say, actually, could I automate this? In what circumstances could I actually replace this process or trust an LLM to do it? Maybe something I value doing by hand or something like this, right? I'm finding a lot of that. And especially as the models get better, I'm finding I'm having to erode my own things that I enjoy and hand it off to the agent just so I can just be more productive, which is great, right?
Is there a skill that you think is becoming less valuable as we are moving towards AI? So I'll start. I was given a typing book by my parents, or by my mum when I was 12 years old, because she's like, this is a great skill for you to have to learn how to type SSS, DDD, FFS. And so I can type pretty quick. But over the weekend, I actually was doing a big, massive report, which is about 27,000 words, and I didn't type. I spoke at it. I talked. So I feel like maybe even typing is going to be a little bit less of a skill because we're going to be so busy speaking to everybody now and speaking to our LLMs, because my typing is about 60 words per minute, but the way I talk, 150. So I'm going to be even more productive speaking rather than typing. So I wonder if typing for me is going to be less of a skill that we need in this age.
Yes. But I honestly don't think there's any specific skill that's like less valuable. I was about to say like, just scheduling, like someone who schedules like an ABP or something like this would be less valuable in this new world. But even that, I kind of disagree, because I have like a bunch of members on my team and I was trying to reschedule kind of all my one-on-ones with them. And I asked the LLM to do that for me because I has access to my calendar. And even in that simple scenario, it was doing a bunch of silly things like not taking into account one of those people is in New Zealand, right? The time zone matters, right? I'm not going to talk to them at their dinner time. And then at the same time, it was scheduling stuff all over lunchtime. Lunchtime is sacred. We can't book over that. And all that extra context, like obviously I could give it more precise instructions. I could say respect lunchtime and it would go ahead and do it. But even then, like if I were an executive, I'd still want to trust a human to like get the job done right.
That's true.
Yeah, I think that's super interesting. And then back to context, right? So if you've got, let's say you're a publicly listed company and you're trying to think about doing $1 billion deal and your EA is helping schedule a meeting, who kind of has the implicit like right of way on whose calendar should give way, right? Like an agent, as far as I can tell, is probably not going to know that unless you prompt it and say, which is at that point, it's like, you could have just booked the meeting or sent the email. Do you know what I mean? Like, so it's like, there's a bunch of things. And also, I mean, that's kind of an emotional thing as well, because there is actually a sense of control that someone wants and needs to have over that interaction. So yeah, I mean, there's a few things there which you go, oh yeah, this might be less valuable, but even then I've mentioned report writing. It's not necessarily a skill, but going and copying and pasting things from a bunch of different places, right? Like gathering sparse information and then pulling it together, right? If somebody had kind of spent time doing that previously, they don't need to do it anymore. And I don't need to do it as much. And so, yeah, like it's not that it's less valuable. It's just like, I don't need to do it for a bunch of reasons. Yeah.
So we've got Slido. So if you want to ask questions, make sure you pop that in there and you can ask the panel. I'm taking a quick look at this right now. And how are the companies like Stripe and ultimately Splose narrowing the gap with Google to enhance products that feeds LLMs for their customers?
Companies like Stripe helping businesses kind of expose their product catalog to the internet or to LLMs or to all the services they need to get to. Yes, exactly. So I think this is one part that's going to be really important because there's a lot of kind of forces at work all trying to do different things in this space, right? And they're all competing. So I think one thing that I'm quite proud of at Stripe is we developed the Agentic Commerce Suite, right? Which is quite agnostic when it comes to us basically being given product catalogs from various companies and then going and making sure that those product catalogs can all be surfaced in all the LLM surfaces where they need to be surfaced, right? So we have that in place right now and it's in kind of like private preview in the US. So there are companies who are currently using that today to great success, but that will continue to be a problem. And it's the most practical problem when it comes to wanting to combine an agentic harness and commerce, because the agentic harness and the LLMs you're interacting with have to know the products that it's going to try to suggest to you. And it gets quite complicated, right? When you think about prices changing, coupons, sales, where the product is, does it need to ship from somewhere? Is that shipping available to you who are controlling that agent, right? So lots of complexity there, but hopefully we can keep it as simple as possible.
Got another question here. How can we manage the risk of over-reliance on AI agents? Lloyd?
Yeah, I'm happy to give that a crack. I would be interested to know how you define risk. So I think that if the risk of the over-reliance equates to bad outcomes, whether that's fraud or whether it's poor business performance or just like, I don't know, a poor customer experience, then the proof is going to be in the pudding, right? But if you are heavily relying on agents and all things are going green and up and to the right, are you over relying on them? Like I don't, so I would probably just, reframe that a little bit. And then if there is a risk and it is, red, then it's probably going to show up elsewhere. And so I think like these agentic systems, these agents that we use are actually kind of representations of the systems and processes we already have in our business or that we are doing every day as professionals. And so it's probably already showing up in an inefficiency somewhere else. So yeah, I don't know, define risk.
Do you want to define risk, Dan?
No, but I'm trying to relate. And like, I have noticed myself ask Claude Code to do something and then not review the output. I'm just like, yep, sounds good for this particular test. Yeah,
It's very trusting of you.
Yeah. But you can see how over time that will hurt. And I'm wondering at what point do we draw the line and say, I read everything it outputs, whether it's like a brief or a piece of code or something. I think that's what we're all figuring out. I don't have the right answer.
And if you bring it back to maybe Lucy's typing point, I think any engineer in the room has probably got a feeling that you're going to be rewriting bad agent code. right? And so like I can see a few nods. So like typing is not going anywhere. You know what I mean? Like you're going to be typing and you're going to be like either prompting something to fix bad agent code or you're going to be fixing it yourself. So it's like in that instance, your example, it's like you're actually shifting the bottleneck somewhere else. So yeah, you ship the product faster, but now you have to spend more time maintaining it or making it. And so that's what I mean about like, it's the same systems we've already got in place. We're just kind of shifting it. And so, yeah, in that sense, if there's an over reliance on, which again, you know, maybe I would draw a distinction between like LLMs and agentic workflows, but yeah, it's kind of just shifting.
Yep. We've got 2 quick questions to finish. My first one to you is what emerging tech or innovation or advancements are you most excited about when it comes to fintech and payments? I'd love to hear answers.
Oh, wow. Yeah. I am excited about less fraud. I think,
Great.
you know, we talked about the fear factor of some of these tools, but I'm really excited about the advancements and how much faster it's going to be to identify bad guys. Previously, that could be quite difficult. I think now it's going to be a lot easier. I'm also really excited about the opportunity for us to have everybody to have a independent third-party financial analyst in your pocket. We were talking earlier, my dad doesn't run his self-managed super through an LLM, but he uses Perplexity, he uses Gemini and Claude to help him research what should be in his SMSF, right? There's no reason that couldn't just be something that we all have, that an agent has access to our kind of our super or our financial future or whatever it is, right? And helps us optimize on top of that. Whether we're making the decisions ultimately or not, there is some really exciting stuff there that people are just coming up with now. And I want that thing. Yeah.
Your dad is pretty tech savvy, I have to say. My parents are not on any AIs yet. What about you, Dan? What are you most excited about?
Like we already covered it, but I am legitimately excited for an agent to buy something for me, right? And I think we all like actually jump too far ahead. We jump to the agent has free reign with my credit card and goes and does whatever it wants. But actually, many times all I want to do is just give it the URL. Like I picked the thing or it helped me pick the thing. I discussed it with my partner. We said, yep, that's the one we're going to get. And I just said, go buy this, go. That's what I want to happen. But we don't have that yet, right? And we don't even have the other, like another scenario is my household runs on very few things like milk, yogurt, cheese, especially the stringy cheese for little fingers, and coffee for me. And like, that's kind of it. And if an agent could just have a budget to go solve those things, and that is a guaranteed thing that will be in my pantry when I open it, like how fat, like that's like the future. That's like the Jetsons, right? Like, so I'm really actually excited for that.
Yeah, I think we all want that, right? Who likes to shop? I don't like to shop.
It depends, right?
Yeah.
Some shopping, but not
regular,
yeah,
routine shopping. It's a bit boring. Let's finish with short and sharp, one piece of advice each. What should this room not ignore right now? Must take away, do not ignore, must do, today, tomorrow, tonight.
I don't know. I think we're in this great age of experimentation. And if you're not playing around or, like I was saying earlier, questioning yourself on things that you think maybe cannot be done with LLMs, you should really challenge yourself and see if that's actually the case. Whatever your profession, whatever it is you do, there's so many things that I think we can actually offload and we can go live happier lives being outside, doing things like this.
Yep. What about you, Lloyd?
Totally agree. Yeah, hard cosign on that. I think as well, like, you know, we talked about curiosity and these skills that are going to be more important. I'd encourage everybody in this room to go and build something. If you ever thought that you had a creative kind of bone in your body and a problem to solve, you can do it, right? It's super easy. Just download Claude and set it at the task. Talk to it or go onto Vercel, get set up and make something.
Yeah. And can I tell you, can I ask what your band was?
After a few drinks, I'm going to...
Really?
Yeah, no.
Oh, you're going to leave us hanging.
Yeah,
what?
that's right.
Guys, I think tonight we really talked a lot about this space. And we spoke about fintech, we spoke about payments, we spoke about agentic AI, the good, the bad, the ugly. I think it's exciting, but it's also a bit scary, I think, in terms of what's coming up. You know, exciting because I'm going to have regular routine shopping in my pantry. It's also scary because there's going to be so much more scam that's going to happen, right? And who knows who to trust. So tonight's theme I really wanted to point on was trust. How do you trust in payments? How do you trust in fintech? Because I think this is a really important topic for everybody and affects everybody because we all have to shop something, you know? So I'm really delighted to have this conversation tonight. Thank you, Lloyd. Thank you, Daniel, for this incredible conversation. I hope you got as much out of it as I have, and I had really enjoyed this chat. So can we give the panelists a bit of a clap? Thank you.
How great was this conversation? For me, 3 ideas really stood out. First, Agentic AI is AI that actually does things for us, not just chats. It reads documents, plugs into tools, and can take actions like sending messages or moving money. That's exciting, but it also means the underlying infrastructure and guardrails suddenly matter a lot more. Second, trust is a real battleground, especially in healthcare and finance. You can't just drop an agent into a sensitive workflow and hope for the best. You need clear boundaries about where it can act autonomously, where it should only recommend, and where a human must always stay in the loop. And the third theme for me was that Agentic AI is a little bit less like an all-knowing oracle and more like a very fast and very literal teammate. If you don't always give it the right context, it would still act, but not just in the ways you may want it to mean. Dan's grocery example is such a good illustration of that. The agent did exactly what it thought it was right, but without enough context, the result wasn't exactly what the human would have chosen. I'd like to thank the awesome Daniel and Lloyd for their insights and stories, and also our partners for making this very special live podcast event happen. This podcast is not a standalone effort, and there's a lot going on behind the scenes, and we love our partners for making it happen. I'd like to thank our presenting partner, Stripe. Stripe is a programmable financial services company building infrastructure for the next era, from global payments to cutting-edge agentic commerce capabilities. Our festival partner, Sunrise. Sunrise is Blackbird VC's festival of creativity, technology, and ambition, bringing together founders, operators, and investors to dream up the next big venture. Thanks to Sunrise for letting us be an official conference side event. And our ecosystem partner. For our fantastic venue, Stone & Chalk is a purpose-driven, not-for-profit, helping founders go further, faster through access to workspace, experts, investors, corporate partners, government, and each other. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe, leave us a review, and share it with 3 of your friends and networks so they can enjoy it too. It takes a lot of research time and effort to put a podcast together, and I would very much appreciate it if you can support our podcast with a donation so I can cover my podcast production expenses and keep this show and our important mission of providing quality education, promoting gender equality, and highlighting future skills and STEM career pathways going. We're always looking for sponsorships, partnerships, and guest speaking collaborations. Visit our website to speak with me directly, emergingtechunpacked.com. We are available on audio format on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, and you can also watch us on YouTube, and we have bonus video content there. Make sure to tap the notification bell so you can be informed of the latest episode releases. We're active on social media, so make sure to subscribe and follow us on our social media channels, LinkedIn, Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook, to stay updated with the latest news and content. To get in contact with me, you can find me on LinkedIn by searching for Lucy Lin, or on my website, lucy-lin.com. We welcome all feedback and will be very grateful if you can help us grow and spread the word by forwarding this episode to a friend and giving us a 5-star review. Thank you so much for your attention. My name is Lucy Lin, and thank you for listening to Emerging Tech Unpacked. If there's one thought to leave you with, it's this. In an agentic world, AI can fill your cart, compare prices, and check out for you. Let them do all the boring bits. but you should still be the one who clicks the buy button at the very end and check all the receipts. Also, I found out Lloyd's band name. It's Carpathian. It's a hard rock punk band, and one of their singles actually made it to number 19 on the Australian music charts. That is so cool, and what a rock star. We have our first rock star on Emerging Tech Unpacked. I'm so excited. See you in the next episode soon.